Let's start today with an update on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Because, yeah, there's been less media coverage of this, but that doesn't mean there aren't newsworthy things happening. And it is going so poorly, according to new reports for Russia, that there are renewed questions as to whether Putin is, quote, doomed, which we will get to in a moment. Reuters and others, but we'll look at a Reuters report reporting that Russian troops are fleeing and getting back over the border into Russia. Russia has largely ceded its gains near Kharkiv, writes Reuters, and many of the withdrawing Russian soldiers have exited Ukraine, moving over the border back into Russia. This is per a senior U.S. military official. As it pulls back, the U.S. has seen anecdotal reports of Russian forces abandoning equipment. Again, disorganized command and control is mentioned. That's been that's been a hallmark, a staple of Russian activity so far. The remarks to Pentagon reporters followed a weekend of rapid gains for Ukrainian forces. Ukraine's general staff said its soldiers had recaptured more than 20 towns and villages in just the last day, as Ukrainian forces swept deeper into territory seized from fleeing Russian troops. Now, the big stories here were, of course, a war of aggression by Russia. That's an accurate and true story. Expectations early that this would be a very easy military win for Russia. Very quickly, that assumption evaporated. However, there was the belief that, although on the one hand, the longer it went, the worse it is for Russia, that eventually, if Russia decided to commit the resources, it would overwhelm Ukrainian troops. That's not happening. And in fact, things are going in the opposite direction. The U.S. military official reads the same article, was upbeat but cautious when describing the Russian advances. It's clear they're fighting hard. Ukraine said it repelled attempted Russian advances in two important areas of the Donetsk region, the city of Bakhmut and Mayorsk, near the coal-producing town of Horlivka, the general staff said in an evening update. But the senior U.S. official said Russia was still focusing its firepower on Bakhmut. So a lot more tactical information that you can read if that is interesting to you. Now the question becomes, what about the propaganda war? And what about the future of Vladimir Putin? There's an interesting article in The Hill, which is worth reading, if not, it's worth reading. Let's just put it that way. And it's by Alexander Motil, who's an opinion contributor. And it says, like his soldiers, is Putin doomed? Now, the article is somewhat hyperbolic, admittedly. And the article writes, Vladimir Putin is kaput. The proof of that is the below letter, written by a 26-year-old soldier in the Russian army, V.V. Tarasenko. We know nothing about Tarasenko except he was a resident of Putin's brainchild, the so-called Luhansk People's Republic, and that he has a wife, Valeria, and a small son. We also know Tarasenko died in battle during the recent Ukrainian offensive in the Kharkiv province. Ukrainian intel found the letter. The letter was written with little punctuation and no capital letters. So the letter reads, this letter is for the future if I should die or be taken prisoner or become a vegetable. Written July 17th, 2022. It's very hard to write. I'm crying, but I must. Beloved Lara, tell our son what kind of dad I was, that we were sent as cannon fodder to Zaliman, a village in Kharkiv province, without armor, without ammunition, without normal weapons. This is about our situation. When our son grows up, tell him his dad wanted very much to return home to be the best dad ever. I've been drinking, and I'm writing emotionally. I know that this all will be forgotten and that you will be living your own life, that you'll find a new husband, that I'll simply disappear in the war like all the guys. Unfortunately, I didn't have a normal life. Say that dad was an athlete, didn't smoke, didn't drink. It's terrible that everyone has forgotten me. It's very hard to accept all this, but all people die, and this cycle can't be changed. It's bad to die in the summer. If only I were at the seashore. And what is written in this Hill article is that Tarasenko's complaints are not unique. The Russian leadership with Putin at the head has evinced a profoundly cavalier attitude towards lives, not just of innocent Ukrainians, but also of Russian soldiers. And what this article and others go on to say is that there is really no path out of this for Putin that is going to be anything short of a failure and doom for Putin. Now, early there were all of these speculations. Is Putin sick and has a death wish and is determined to be assassinated eventually by operatives from other countries? Or is Putin so drunk on the idea of reassembling some version of the USSR that he's not thinking clearly, and whatever the case may be. I, at this point, think the ship has sort of sailed on making rational sense out of what Putin was thinking and when he was thinking it and what the end goal is here. But it is clear that if there is going to be a win for Russia, it's going to be a win only with completely revised objectives. And so at this point, when this didn't end in 2 weeks, we started talking about, well, it's likely going to be more than months at this point. And what is the ultimate goal? Because a complete and total takeover of Ukraine seems increasingly unlikely. It seems quite plausible that Putin and his cronies will revise their military objectives, and they will revise them to say, our goal is actually to control a lot less territory than we initially planned. With those revised objectives, they may be able to come away with something that they would call a win for propaganda purposes. But there's also a fear. The fear is that as Russia and Putin realize, we're not going to be able to continue mounting offensives and really take Ukraine in the way that originally some projected us to do. There's the fear that an increasingly belligerent Putin will resort to those tactical nuclear weapons. These are sometimes called battlefield nuclear weapons. It's not like the massive bomb that destroys entire cities, but they are battlefield or tactical nukes. And that would be something that Putin is willing to do to kind of maintain this image of strength, the kind of harebrained caricature of the alpha male that has pervaded the MAGA movement in the United States, quite frankly. It's sort of a similar dynamic. That is a fear that an increasingly cornered Putin would go in that direction. So it is unpredictable what is going to happen, but what we know is that it is not going well for Russian troops, and there is still an invasion, there is still a war, even if more and more mainstream corporate media isn't talking about it. Who doesn't love a good cereal? The crunchiness, the sweetness, it satisfies in a serious manner. But then you grow up and now all the healthy cereals are boring and bland and they get soggy. And this is where Magic Spoon comes in. It is that sweet, crunchy texture you loved from childhood with 0 grams of sugar, only 4 to 5 net carbs, perfect if you're doing keto, only 140 calories per serving, and packed with 14 to 15 grams of protein. Magic Spoon spent years developing the recipes. It's really the only cereal on the market to get the texture and the flavor right without the sugar and without a ton of carbs. They have flavors like cocoa, honey nut, fruity, peanut butter. Maybe you want to go adventurous. They've got blueberry muffin, maple waffle, cookies and cream, or cinnamon roll. That brings back memories. I love Magic Spoon. The whole team does. But if you don't, you'll get a full refund. But I know it's about to become your new favorite cereal. You'll get $5 off when you go to magicspoon.com/Pacman. The link is down below.